Have you ever stumbled upon a secret so explosive that one whisper could wreck an entire family? Maybe even an entire fortune. Picture this: a respected millionaire, a pregnant wife who trusts him completely, and an unexpected mistress lurking in the shadows. In a twist that shatters every rule of loyalty, the millionaire uses his wife's prenatal appointment for his mistress. The tangled web that follows is a roller coaster of guilt, glamour, and heartbreak. If you're ready to embark on a journey where wealth and betrayal collide, this story will draw you in, exposing hidden motives and unstoppable consequences. Adrian Westbrook lived in a world custom-built for spectacle. At 35, he was a self-made millionaire who commanded attention wherever he went. Dark hair, neatly styled, and a perpetual layer of confidence on his face, Adrian was an enigma in the refined corridors of high society. Born in the modest town of Ridgemont, he'd carved his fortune through relentless hours of work, a flair for strategic investments, and a willingness to play the game of social prestige. By the time he married Penelope Beaumont, heiress to the Beaumont shipping empire, he was already on everyone's radar, the man who had it all. From the outside looking in, Adrian and Penelope were a perfect couple. She was a poised blonde with a keen intellect, someone who could discuss the complexities of the European shipping lanes as easily as she could detail the nuances of postmodern art. Their wedding had been the talk of the tabloids, plastered across the society pages magnificent Westbrook-Beaumont nuptials. Over 500 guests sipped vintage champagne under glass chandeliers, while Penelope, dressed in custom Maison Dior, danced with Adrian in front of a garden brimming with white roses and twinkling fairy lights. The city's most prestigious wedding planner, recognized for orchestrating celebrity nuptials, masterminded the event. Even longtime socialite Marilyn Devereux named it the most elegant affair of the decade. This was the glittering facade the Westbrooks presented to the world. Behind the scenes, though, ripples of discontent were forming. Adrian, with his demanding business schedule, had little time for Penelope. She grew accustomed to lonely evenings in their sprawling penthouse on the Upper East Side. He frequently traveled for business, leaving her to the occasional company of her mother, Eleanor Beaumont, a staunchly aristocratic figure who was always ready to remind her daughter of the family's pride. But everything changed when Penelope announced her pregnancy, a long-awaited blessing. Adrian genuinely seemed thrilled when he heard the news. He even insisted on driving her to the first doctor's appointment, a gesture that was a rarity for someone who rarely made time for personal errands. Penelope felt her heart flutter with hope. She had always yearned for a closer connection with her husband, and the baby seemed like the perfect reason for Adrian to prioritize family. They scheduled her prenatal care at the exclusive Westbrook Women's Medical Pavilion, a high-end clinic Adrian had personally funded, named partly to honor his philanthropic efforts. The staff there included Dr. Julian Fairchild, a renowned OB/GYN who'd famously assisted with celebrity births. But beneath his composed exterior, Adrian was restless. A new storm was gathering, a storm named Isabella Moretti. In the hush-hush back channels of society, rumors about an incredibly stunning brunette on Adrian's arm in downtown lounges had begun to spread. Adrian tried to dismiss these as vicious gossip until the rumors turned into photographic evidence. Paparazzi had snapped clandestine photos of him stepping out of his private chauffeured car with a mysterious woman one late evening. He and his legal team scrambled to suppress the pictures, but the damage was already done. His best friend, Armand Castillo, confronted Adrian about it. Armand was a close confidant from Adrian's startup days. He prided himself on telling Adrian the truth, even when it wasn't easy to hear. "Adrian, "Do you have any idea what's at stake?" Armand asked one night in the VIP lounge of the Mayfair Club. "Penelope's pregnant. Her father practically built half of your empire with you. You're playing with fire. If the Beaumonts find out you're having an affair, your entire world will unravel." Adrian just shook his head, swirling the vintage scotch in his glass. He made some half-hearted promise to handle the situation. But the vow was empty words. Adrian was already too invested, too entangled, caught between devotion to his unborn child and an unrelenting passion for Isabella. Isabella Moretti had her own complicated story. Born in Naples, she immigrated to New York with her family when she was just a teenager. She saw her parents toil day and night in a cramped Italian eatery, determined to give her a shot at the American dream. And Isabella, blessed with sharp intelligence and a striking beauty, was determined to make the most of every opportunity. After finishing college, she juggled multiple part-time jobs while chasing her entrepreneurial aspirations. She had eventually launched a modest but upscale boutique specializing in imported Italian dresses. It was at a charity gala in Manhattan where Isabella had volunteered to provide styling services that she first crossed paths with Adrian Westbrook. He was charming, witty, and powerful. She felt drawn to his confidence like a moth to a flame. Meanwhile, Adrian found in Isabella something he wasn't getting from his marriage: spontaneity, unencumbered passion, and an unspoken understanding that life was meant to be lived boldly. To her credit, Isabella initially resisted. She asked him point blank if he was married. Adrian gave her a half-truth. "I'm in a complicated relationship," he said. She tried to pull away, but the emotional spark and her own ambition kept her tethered to him. Before long, they were meeting in discreet penthouse suites and taking weekend getaways under the guise of Adrian's business travel. His money and connections impressed Isabella, who had never known such luxury. But ironically, that wasn't the main draw. She adored Adrian's adventurous spirit, the feeling that something remarkable happened whenever they were together. Of course, she understood the moral complexities. She wasn't proud of the affair, but she found herself rationalizing it. Adrian wasn't happy in his marriage, and she wasn't exactly tearing apart a perfect relationship. All her justifications came crashing down the moment she realized she might be pregnant. For weeks she felt nauseous and unusually tired. With fear and trembling, Isabella used a home test kit. When 2 lines appeared, she called Adrian and left him a voicemail. "I'm worried something's wrong. Please call me back." She avoided the actual word, pregnant, not sure how to handle his reaction. Several tense days went by. Finally, Adrian responded, sounding annoyed on the phone. "I'm in the middle of back-to-back meetings, Isabella. What is it?" His tone softened when she confessed she had missed her period and was experiencing early pregnancy symptoms. "Let's not jump to conclusions," he said. "We'll have you checked out." The problem was Adrian had little time or space to orchestrate a separate medical appointment for Isabella, at least not without raising eyebrows. Penelope was nearing her next prenatal visit, and Adrian's schedule was already hectic. He was juggling major real estate deals and a conference with potential European investors where the Beaumont shipping line's partnership was crucial. In the swirl of all this, something reckless formed in his mind. Take Isabella to see Dr. Fairchild using Penelope's appointment. He reasoned it would be simple. Dr. Fairchild was a discreet professional handling celebrities all the time. Also, Adrian funded the clinic, so the staff would do as he asked. The plan was to claim a scheduling oversight slip Isabella into the exam room, briefly make sure everything was discreet, and be out before the staff or Penelope realized what had happened. It was an insane idea, and yet it seemed like an easy fix, a quick way to get Isabella confirmation about her condition. If she wasn't pregnant, no harm done. If she was, then at least Adrian would know what he was dealing with. The day arrived for Penelope's routine prenatal appointment. Adrian insisted on driving her there, a gesture that made her glow with renewed hope about their relationship. She laughed, thinking he finally wanted to be more hands-on with the pregnancy. "Honey, you don't have to do this." "I can take the driver," she said. "I want to," he insisted, forcing a smile. He tried to hide his nerves by discussing mundane business updates during the drive. His phone buzzed with messages from Isabella. He had told her to arrive at the clinic precisely 20 minutes after Penelope's scheduled time. As they pulled up to the Westbrook Women's Medical Pavilion, Adrian escorted Penelope inside his arm, wrapped protectively around her shoulder. The waiting lounge was bright-lined with plush seats and a gold-plated plaque reading Westbrook Pavilion in service of women's health. An elegant water fountain murmured in the corner, an emblem of the clinic's luxury. Dr. Julian Fairchild, whose name carried weight in New York's upper class, greeted them warmly. A tall man in his early 50s, with neatly combed silver hair and kind eyes, he guided Penelope into a private examination room. Adrian followed, looking strangely tense. When Dr. Fairchild asked if Adrian wanted to remain for the ultrasound, Adrian declined, citing a phone call he had to make in the hallway. That small detail pricked Penelope's heart. He can't even stay to see the baby's heartbeat, she thought. But she didn't voice her disappointment, determined to remain the calm, supportive wife. After all, Adrian was there physically present, which was more than she had dared hope for in the last few months. While Penelope changed into the exam gown, Adrian stepped out and hurried down the corridor. He spotted Isabella tiptoeing in, wearing large sunglasses and a headscarf. She looked anxious, glancing at the reception desk, and then at him. Adrian guided her to a small consulting room near the back. There he confronted Dr. Fairchild's assistant, Maria Delgado, a loyal clinic employee who recognized Adrian and rarely questioned his instructions. He whispered, "Ms. Moretti needs a quick checkup from Dr. Fairchild. It's urgent. We have a scheduling conflict, but I trust we can keep this private." Maria frowned, clearly uneasy about the unorthodox request. Yet she felt obligated. Adrian Westbrook donated millions to keep this place running. She complied, telling Isabella to wait while she alerted Dr. Fairchild. Back in Penelope's exam room, Dr. Fairchild was discussing her progress, pointing out the baby's steady heartbeat on the ultrasound. "Penelope, everything looks great. Your next test will be for gestational diabetes screening," he said. Meanwhile, text messages pinged on Dr. Fairchild's phone, presumably from his assistant. He glanced at them, his brows knitting in concern. He carefully wrapped up with Penelope, praising her for her consistent prenatal care. "I'll be back in just a moment, Mrs. Westbrook," he said, stepping out quickly. Dr. Fairchild found Maria in the hallway, a worried expression on her face. She whispered that Adrian had brought someone else needing an urgent exam. "He's requesting your discretion, Dr. Fairchild," Maria murmured. Dr. Fairchild frowned. He prided himself on ethical practice, yet he also knew that the clinic depended heavily on Adrian's funding. The doctor knocked softly on the consulting room door, then entered to find Adrian and Isabella. The tension was thick enough to cut with a scalpel. "Dr. Fairchild." Adrian began clearing his throat. "Isabella here may be in need of a pregnancy test. I know it's sudden, but can you help?" The doctor gave him a long, critical stare. He recognized Isabella from previous gossip, swirling around high society events. In a measured tone, he replied, "Mr. Westbrook, you realize this is highly irregular. I have your wife in the next room." Adrian nodded, pain and panic flickering across his usually confident expression. I understand, but we need your utmost discretion. I trust we can settle this quickly. Fairchild hesitated. Morally, this was a line. He was about to facilitate a consultation for Adrian's mistress, just as he was caring for Adrian's wife, who was blissfully ignorant in the adjacent room. But refusing Adrian outright could jeopardize the clinic's funding and resources for countless patients. Striving for a professional calm, he agreed. Let's do a quick exam. But I won't lie to Penelope if she asks questions. Quickly, Dr. Fairchild began the standard procedure, a simple blood test and a physical exam. Isabella answered questions in hushed tones, her breath catching whenever she thought she heard footsteps. Adrian stood by her, gently rubbing her shoulder, looking more anxious than ever. The exam was over in 20 minutes, a lifetime compressed into a short window. Dr. Fairchild promised to expedite the lab work, but explained that some results might take a couple of hours. They agreed Isabella would wait at a nearby cafe, and Adrian would keep checking his phone for updates. As Dr. Fairchild moved to leave, he gave Adrian a final, sober look. Mr. Westbrook, deception like this has repercussions. I sincerely hope you understand the gravity of what you're doing here. Adrian swallowed. He offered no rebuttal, only a nod, before hastily guiding Isabella out of the clinic via a side exit. Then, like an actor switching roles mid-scene, he slipped back down the corridor toward Penelope's exam room, calling out, "Honey, I'm so sorry. Urgent business call." Penelope, changing back into her elegant maternity dress, gave him a tired smile. "It's okay, Adrian. I wish you'd seen the ultrasound. Dr. Fairchild says everything looks good." She tried to mask her hurt with optimism. Adrian, feeling a surge of guilt, placed a hand on her shoulder. "That's wonderful news. I promise I'll be there for the next one." He lied. Shortly after the appointment, Penelope sensed something was off. Adrian's behavior was too erratic, his phone buzzing with seemingly urgent notifications. When she teased him about the messages, he brushed it off as European investors. She noticed he was scanning the environment, as if worried they'd be overheard. Penelope also picked up small clues, like the fleeting look of unease on Dr. Fairchild's face when they said their goodbyes. She'd known the doctor long enough to sense that he was hiding discomfort. And then there was the fleeting glimpse of a woman wearing sunglasses and a headscarf rushing out the side door. Penelope dismissed it initially. The clinic served many wealthy or high-profile clients who valued discretion. But the woman's posture, the stance, it vaguely reminded Penelope of someone she'd glimpsed at a distance at one of Adrian's business receptions. That afternoon, after Adrian dropped her off at their penthouse, Penelope retreated to the bedroom for a nap. She found she couldn't sleep, her mind restless. She recalled the rumors swirling around her circle of acquaintances, the hushed speculation that Adrian might be unfaithful. She had always rejected the idea, telling herself it was baseless gossip. But something gnawed at her now. When she drifted off, her dreams were riddled with scenes of betrayal and confusion, her subconscious screaming a warning she didn't want to acknowledge. Meanwhile, Adrian was in a private corner booth of Café Troubadour with Isabella, who kept checking her phone for word from Dr. Fairchild. The air was filled with tension and unspoken worries. What if she was pregnant? What would that mean for Adrian? For Penelope? For everyone involved? She sipped a cup of green tea, her hands trembling on the saucer. Adrian tried to maintain composure. "We'll handle whatever the result is. If you are pregnant, I'll figure something out." Isabella frowned. "You'll figure something out? That's not exactly comforting. You have a wife who's pregnant, by the way, and a powerful father-in-law who can ruin you." Adrian's gaze slid to the floor. He was no longer the confident alpha magnate. He was just a trapped man. Suddenly, Isabella's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her heart nearly stopped. It was Maria Delgado relaying a message from Dr. Fairchild. "The results are positive. Please schedule a follow-up." Isabella placed the phone on the table with trembling hands. Adrian just stared at a complete loss for words. That night, Adrian returned to a quiet penthouse. Penelope was in the living room, reading a book on parenting tips. She looked up at him and smiled, though her eyes carried a trace of fatigue. "Long day?" she asked. He nodded, crossing the room to place a quick kiss on her forehead. Penelope's heart ached at his touch, longing for the days when their affection was genuine and spontaneous. In the sanctuary of his personal study, a spacious room lined with rare books and a large mahogany desk, Adrian poured himself a shot of whiskey. This was where he usually conducted late-night conference calls or hashed out last-minute strategy plans. Tonight, though, he couldn't focus on business at all. He stood at the window, gazing at the city lights. The news of Isabella's pregnancy weighed heavily on him. Thoughts crashed into one another. How do I hide this? Is there even a way to keep it secret? A part of him felt that telling Penelope the truth might be the only ethical path forward, but the consequences would be catastrophic, professionally, financially, and personally. He pictured Penelope's face crumpling in anguish, the condemnation from her family, the potential collapse of the Westbrook empire. Everything he'd built could vanish in an instant. In a state of emotional turmoil, he dialed Armand Castillo's number. "I need your advice," Adrian admitted, the moment Armand picked up. There was a pause, then Armand asked quietly, "Is this about the mistress? I heard some new rumors." Adrian let out a humorless laugh. "She's pregnant. I just found out." A sharp exhale on the other end of the line. "You can't be serious," Armand said. Adrian grimaced. "Do I sound like I'm joking?" The conversation spiraled as Adrian explained he'd already used Penelope's appointment for Isabella. Armand's shocked silence said it all. Finally, he spoke. "You're playing a dangerous game, my friend. You need to come clean or come up with a plan. You know Penelope better than anyone. She'll suspect something soon." In her bedroom, Penelope lay awake. She heard Adrian talking in his study, his voice muffled through the closed door. She wondered whom he was speaking to at this late hour. Despite her rational self telling her not to pry curiosity, and a flicker of dread prodded her to press her ear against the door. She caught fragmented words. "Appointment pregnant, Isabella. I don't know what to do." Each word felt like a bullet to her heart. She backed away quietly, tears swelling in her eyes. Her suspicions were brutally confirmed. It felt as if the floor had vanished beneath her. Penelope recalled the conversation with her mother that morning, a casual chat about baby names and baby shower themes. Eleanor Beaumont had commented how important trust and mutual respect were in marriage, especially when expecting a child. Trust. The word struck Penelope like a thunderbolt. Everything we've built was a lie. She realized that all the nights Adrian had been gone, all his rushed phone calls, the presence of that mysterious woman at the clinic, none of it was coincidence. Though trembling, she resolved to gather more facts before confronting him. She needed to understand the extent of this betrayal, whether it was a passing fling or something deeper. She had no idea Isabella was already pregnant. If she did, she might have left that very night. The next day, Penelope embarked on a subtle detective mission. She phoned Dr. Fairchild's office to confirm her next prenatal appointment and found an unusual hesitance in the receptionist's voice. We have you scheduled for 2 weeks from now. Let me just verify that the time wasn't mistakenly cancelled." Penelope frowned. "Why would it be cancelled?" the receptionist stammered. "There's a note here about a scheduling conflict. Let me check with Dr. Fairchild." Instantly, alarm bells rang in Penelope's mind. So that's how it happened. Adrian used my time slot to see that woman. She politely ended the call, determined to unearth more. She reached out to a friend, Lydia Montrose, a well-connected socialite who seemed to know everyone's business in Manhattan. Over coffee at an upscale cafe, Penelope feigned casual curiosity, asking Lydia if she'd heard any new rumors about Adrian. Lydia, never one to hold back gossip, leaned in conspiratorially. She mentioned seeing Adrian with a woman at a gallery opening 2 months ago. She even had a name, Isabella Moretti, I think. She's some sort of boutique owner. Stunning with dark hair. I tried to approach Adrian, but he looked like he didn't want to be seen. Penelope's heart twisted painfully. So it's her. But outwardly she maintained composure. Oh, Adrian probably had business with her. She lied smoothly, changing the topic to avoid further scrutiny. That afternoon, Penelope ventured downtown. She discreetly visited Isabella's boutique, Moretti Couture, just to see the woman behind her heartbreak. The boutique was classy, adorned with trendy Italian dresses, silver mannequins, and stylish decor. Penelope's breath caught when she recognized Isabella from the hush of the clinic hallway, now behind a counter, assisting a customer. Isabella wore a poised, professional smile and a sleek black dress. There was an effortless sophistication in her manner. In another life, Penelope might have admired her. "This is the woman who's involved with my husband," she thought, her heart pounding in her chest. Pretending to browse, Penelope observed Isabella's grace. Guilt and confusion flooded Penelope's mind. Was Isabella truly the villain here? Or was she just as trapped by Adrian's manipulations? Over the next hour, Penelope gathered the courage to leave. As she exited, Isabella caught sight of her and offered a warm farewell. "Thank you for visiting Moretti Couture. We hope to see you again." Penelope, swallowing the bitterness rising in her throat, managed a polite nod. She could sense that Isabella didn't recognize her as Adrian's wife. Isabella's expression remained relaxed and businesslike. The betrayal stung even more. Meanwhile, Isabella was grappling with her own turmoil. Confirming her pregnancy was a seismic shift. She had never envisioned herself as the other woman, let alone an expectant mother in such a scandalous setup. She found it harder to hide her physical symptoms. The mild morning nausea, the acute sense of smell each day, made it more real. She confided in her only close friend, Teresa Alvarez, who worked at a nearby art gallery. Teresa, known for her blunt honesty, didn't mince words. "This is going to blow up in your face if you don't figure out where you stand. Adrian's not single. His wife is pregnant too. It's not just a fling anymore. It's a full-blown crisis." Isabella had no defense. She knew Teresa was right. Adrian's messages were becoming more sporadic, more frantic. He was working overtime to keep the situation hidden. "Once the initial shock wears off, we'll talk about solutions," he told her in a late-night phone call. "But do nothing rash. Please." Dr. Fairchild, meanwhile, was wrestling with the ethics of continuing to treat both women, one in the light, the other in the shadows. Every time he saw Penelope, a pang of guilt gnawed at him. He considered refusing to treat Isabella altogether, but that would likely push her out to another doctor and set the stage for an even more dangerous chain of secrecy. At least under his supervision, he could ensure some level of responsible care for both women. As the days turned into weeks, the tension escalated. Penelope diligently attended her scheduled checkups, always accompanied by Adrian, who tried to portray a sense of normalcy. She smiled politely for Dr. Fairchild, who tried to hide his inner conflict. Behind the scenes, Adrian found ways to cover Isabella's medical expenses at the same clinic under a different name. No less so she could receive prenatal care without arousing suspicion. The deception grew increasingly elaborate, involving hush money to certain staff members. If the stakes weren't already high enough, they were about to get worse. It was a chilly afternoon when Penelope finally decided she couldn't stay silent any longer. Armed with the knowledge of Isabella's identity and the near certainty that Adrian was entangled in an affair, she confronted him in his study. The confrontation wasn't the dramatic explosion one might expect. Instead, it was subdued, laced with heartbreak. She closed the study door and stood there, her hands trembling. "Adrian," she began softly, "I know you've been seeing another woman." Adrian's expression shifted from surprise to dread. He attempted to feign ignorance. "Penelope, what are you talking about?" She held his gaze, tears forming at the corners of her eyes. "Her name is Isabella Moretti, isn't it?" Adrian froze. The color drained from his face. He stammered, How did you—" She cut him off. "I heard your phone call. I visited her boutique. I recognized her from the clinic." The final piece of revelation hit him like a sledgehammer. "The clinic. You saw her there." He sank into his leather chair, burying his face in his hands. He realized the extent of the web he'd woven. Penelope's voice shook as she continued. "Do you have any idea how humiliating this is? I've tried to be a good wife, Adrian. I've been patient, supportive." She broke off, choking back a sob. "I deserve the truth." "Is she pregnant?" Adrian looked up at her, his eyes brimming with guilt. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His silence confirmed her worst suspicions. Penelope's legs buckled, and she staggered backward until she found a seat on a nearby chaise. Tears streamed down her cheeks. "It was a mistake," Adrian finally whispered, his voice hollow. "I never meant for it to go this far." "I'm sorry." She let out a broken laugh. "You're sorry? Do you have any idea what you've done? You used my appointment. You paraded her through our clinic. You've humiliated me and compromised our marriage. And you've endangered our child's future." Adrian moved toward her, but she recoiled. The heartbreak in her eyes was tinged with rage. "Don't touch me," she hissed, a layer of steel in her usually gentle tone. In that moment, Adrian comprehended the magnitude of his betrayal. This was no fleeting affair. It was a catastrophic breach of trust. He stammered apologies, pleading with her to let him explain. But Penelope was too wounded to listen. She got up, steadied herself, and in a voice trembling with sorrow said, "I need space. I can't think with you near me." She left him there alone in the study, surrounded by the ghosts of his misguided choices. In the wake of the confrontation, Penelope left the penthouse and sought refuge at her mother's estate. Eleanor Beaumont welcomed her daughter with open arms, though Penelope only revealed part of the story, at first citing marital problems without delving into the sordid details. Eleanor was no fool. She sensed the severity of the situation, but waited for Penelope to open up on her own terms. Adrian, for his part, felt the oppressive weight of guilt and fear. He dreaded a confrontation with Penelope's father, the formidable Victor Beaumont, who wielded enough financial power to topple Adrian's empire if he chose. Adrian kept trying to call Penelope, leaving voicemails that went unanswered. He sought counsel from Armand Castillo, who told him bluntly, "You've dug yourself into a massive hole. Evasion won't save you now. You need to figure out if this marriage can be salvaged, and if so, how." Consumed by anxiety, Adrian also struggled with what to do about Isabella. She was still carrying his child. Part of him felt duty-bound to take care of her. Another part wondered if stepping away was the only way to salvage his marriage. It was a moral quagmire. Each day that passed without a decision felt like a slow march to ruin. Meanwhile, Isabella recognized the shift in Adrian's demeanor. He became distant, offering cold reassurances. "I'll support you financially," he said, dodging any deeper emotional commitment. She recognized that he was torn between paternal responsibility and the desire to cling to his marriage. Her own guilt magnified with each passing day. She pictured Penelope's face, though she'd only seen her briefly in the boutique, and felt pangs of remorse. What if the roles were reversed, she wondered. She tried calling Adrian, hoping for clarity, but he rarely picked up. When he did, his tone was clipped and fraught with tension. At the next clandestine doctor's appointment with Dr. Fairchild, Isabella found him more curt than usual. He relayed the clinical facts about her pregnancy without any of the warmth she'd seen him show Penelope. Isabella could hardly blame him. She left the clinic feeling alone and conflicted, weighed down by the knowledge that her presence there was an open wound in the lives of others. The inevitable confrontation arrived a week later. Victor Beaumont summoned Adrian to the family's estate. The elder Beaumont wasn't typically a man of many words, but when he spoke, it carried the force of 1,000 judgments. Adrian arrived, greeted by stone-faced servants who led him to Victor's study, a richly furnished room with antiques and maritime paintings reflecting the Beaumont shipping legacy. Victor sat behind an oak desk, his posture rigid. "Sit," he said, pointing to a chair. Adrian complied, his palms sweating. "Penelope is distraught," Victor began. "She's told me everything," Adrian swallowed. "Sir, I can only say how sorry I am." Victor cut him off with a raised hand. "Sorry?" "You've tarnished our family's name, betrayed my daughter, and quite possibly threatened the future of your unborn child with Penelope. Do you have any idea what you've done?" His voice thundered through the room. Adrian felt cornered. "I understand the gravity of my actions," he managed. "I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make amends." Victor's face hardened. "Amends? This is beyond amends. If Penelope decides she wants a divorce, I will support her financially and legally. You do realize she has every right to claim a large portion of your assets." Adrian nodded, his heart hammering. He knew the prenuptial agreements favored Penelope heavily, a concession he'd made willingly at the time of their marriage. Victor leaned forward, steepling his fingers. "Penelope might consider reconciliation, but that depends entirely on you and on whether this person is actually carrying your child. If so, you've compromised our entire family. Have you even thought about the ramifications?" Adrian felt a wave of despair. "I have. I'm prepared to support my child no matter what. But I'd give anything to save my marriage." Silence reigned for a moment. Then Victor spoke in a tone that sent a chill up Adrian's spine. "Keep in mind, we have the resources to ensure you'll never step foot in a Beaumont-affiliated project again. Your board, your investors. Everyone can disappear in an instant if I choose to pull my support. You're walking on very thin ice. Pray that my daughter finds it in her heart to forgive you." With that, Victor dismissed him. Adrian left, feeling like he'd been in the presence of a judge handing down a death sentence. Around the same time, Isabella reached a breaking point. She hadn't seen Adrian in days. He was ignoring her texts, responding with one-word answers, or not at all. One rainy evening, she sent him a curt message. "We need to talk. Urgent. Please come to the boutique." To her surprise, he agreed. When Adrian arrived, the boutique was dark except for a single lamp illuminating a corner of designer dresses. Isabella stood near the mannequins, her arms crossed protectively over her belly. "I'm sorry it's come to this, but I need clarity," she began. Adrian nodded, avoiding her gaze. She continued, "I'm pregnant with your child. I can't do this alone." "Where do we stand?" Adrian struggled for words. "I'm in a terrible position. My wife is pregnant too. She's left me, or at least she's staying with her parents. Her father is threatening my entire livelihood. I don't know if there's a future for us, me and you." Isabella's lips trembled. She had feared this, but hearing it confirmed was devastating. "So was I just a fling?" she asked, tears shining in her eyes. Adrian's voice cracked. "I did care for you, Isabella. I still do. But everything spiraled out of control." A tense silence ensued. Finally, Isabella wiped her tears and drew a shaky breath. "If you can't be in a real relationship with me, then I want a guarantee you'll provide for this child. I deserve that." Adrian swallowed hard. "Of course I will. I promise." She nodded through heartbreak etched her features. "Then go. Figure out your marriage, your business, or whatever you need. Just understand that you can't keep me in limbo forever. If you fail to uphold your promise to help raise or support this baby, I won't stay silent. I'll go public if I have to." This final statement hung in the air with menacing weight. Adrian stared at the floor, realizing that Isabella had him cornered as well. He left the boutique that night with no illusions. He was trapped between two irreconcilable worlds. Back at the Beaumont estate, Penelope wrestled with the possibility of divorce. She confided in her mother, who gently offered advice. "You have every right to leave him, my dear. But before you make that decision, ask yourself, does he truly want to fix this? Is there any chance for forgiveness? If not now, then eventually?" Penelope found herself torn. She still loved Adrian, or at least who he used to be. But the betrayals were deep, and her dignity was on the line. Eventually, Penelope agreed to meet Adrian in a neutral location, the lavish rooftop garden of the Beaumont Hotel, an iconic structure her family owned. The garden overlooked the city skyline, ironically reminiscent of the life they had once shared. Adrian arrived looking more disheveled than Penelope had ever seen him. Dark circles smudged under his eyes, his normally perfect hair slightly unkempt. This alone told her he was unraveling under the pressure. Their conversation began in strained politeness, but it quickly delved into the depths of their pain. Adrian tried to explain how the affair started, describing how he'd felt isolated in the marriage, always overshadowed by the Beaumont empire. Penelope didn't let him shift blame. "I was alone too," she said, her voice breaking. "I tried to reach you so many times. You chose to find comfort in another woman instead of facing our problems together." They talked for hours, tears flowing freely on both sides. Penelope admitted she wasn't sure if she could ever trust him again. Adrian, on his knees in front of her, at one point, begged for a chance to make amends. He promised therapy, promised to end the affair definitively. Then he dropped the final bombshell. "She's pregnant." Penelope's face went white. She'd suspected it, but hearing the confirmation was like being punched in the stomach. She nearly collapsed onto a marble bench, her breath shallow. Adrian reached for her hand, and she yanked it away. "That child is innocent," Penelope said, her voice trembling. "I wouldn't wish any harm on him or her, but I don't know if I can live with that constant reminder." Adrian nodded, tears streaking his face. "I understand," he whispered. For the first time, Penelope saw genuine remorse in his eyes. Is it enough, she wondered? Is it enough to overcome this betrayal? With emotions still raw, Penelope sought professional help. She visited Dr. Elaine Goodwin, a renowned therapist who specialized in marital crises among the elite. Dr. Goodwin's office was a serene space with calming earth tones, a stark contrast to the chaos within Penelope's heart. Over multiple sessions, Penelope processed her betrayal and found a semblance of clarity. She recognized that her anger, while justified, was also fueled by years of pent-up disappointment in Adrian's emotional absence. Adrian also sought therapy on his own, at first, then in couples sessions with Penelope. Each meeting was like peeling off another layer of a toxic onion, painful, tear-inducing but necessary. He admitted he'd sought validation outside the marriage because he felt overshadowed by the Beaumont family legacy. He felt inadequate, as though no matter how successful he became, he'd always be the outsider who'd married into wealth. None of this excused his betrayal, but it offered context. Along the way, they discussed the unborn child Isabella carried. Penelope wrestled with complicated feelings: compassion for the innocent baby, resentment toward Isabella, a lingering sense of betrayal toward Adrian. She knew she had a decision to make: either begin to forgive or walk away. The couples therapy reached a pivotal moment when Dr. Goodwin asked Penelope, "What is it you truly need from Adrian to consider moving forward?" Through tears, Penelope listed her needs: honesty, transparency, a clear plan to support Isabella's baby without continuing the affair, and a renewed commitment to their own child. For Adrian, these demands were steep but necessary. He agreed to draw up legal documents, ensuring financial support for Isabella's child, and severing romantic ties. They'd maintain only minimal communication regarding the child's well-being. Adrian also vowed to devote more time and emotional energy to Penelope, attending all future prenatal appointments and seeking to mend the rift he'd caused. In a final agonizing step, Adrian arranged a meeting with Isabella, this time at a quiet cafe, to avoid prying eyes. It was perhaps the hardest conversation he had ever initiated, second only to his confession to Penelope. Isabella arrived in a loose-fitting dress, her pregnancy starting to show. She looked both anxious and resigned. He explained the new arrangement, a legally binding agreement for child support and shared responsibility, yet an end to their romance. Isabella stared at him with a mix of heartbreak and defiance. "You're choosing her," she said, a statement of fact rather than a question. Adrian nodded, tears brimming. "She's my wife, and we have a child on the way too. But that doesn't mean I won't be there for our child," he said gently. For Isabella, it was a bitter pill to swallow. She felt used, discarded. Yet looking at Adrian's tormented face, she also felt a glimmer of pity. She knew this was the only logical outcome. "I need security," she whispered. "If you ever try to walk away from our child, I'll fight for everything I can get." Adrian nodded, feeling a profound sense of shame. "I promise I won't abandon you or the baby," he assured her. They parted ways, tears and regrets thick in the air. It was a heartbreak that left both feeling hollow. Isabella watched him leave, reflecting on the choices that led her here. She resolved to start anew, focusing on her boutique and preparing for motherhood, albeit under a shadow of scandal. For better or worse, her chapter with Adrian Westbrook was coming to a close. The months that followed were a test of everyone's resolve. Penelope and Adrian continued therapy. Dr. Fairchild oversaw Penelope's pregnancy, offering gentle support whenever her fears crept up. The doctor also treated Isabella, ensuring her child's healthy development. Though the appointments were scheduled meticulously to avoid any awkward overlap, the staff at Westbrook Pavilion whispered about the secret scandal, always mindful of the hush money that had been circulated. Penelope gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, Eliana Grace Westbrook. Adrian was by her side throughout the labor tears of joy mingling with remorse. In those moments, they found a fragile sense of unity. Eliana's birth felt like a second chance, a reminder that life could still bring happiness despite past betrayals. Several weeks later, Isabella gave birth to a boy, Luca Adrian Moretti. Even from a distance, Adrian kept track of the baby's well-being, sending funds and gifts. He visited discreetly once or twice to ensure all was well. Isabella, though still hurt, was true to her word. She didn't impede his involvement. But the emotional bond between them had changed, tempered by the harsh realities of their circumstances. Gradually, Penelope and Adrian rebuilt a semblance of family life. It wasn't perfect, but it was built on a more honest foundation. Penelope established clear boundaries about Adrian's contact with Isabella. Adrian willingly reported every text and email regarding child support or medical updates about Luca. It was an unconventional arrangement full of tension and fragile trust. On the business side, Victor Beaumont kept an eagle eye on Adrian. Though the patriarch continued to partner with Adrian in various ventures, the relationship was palpably cooler. Adrian worked tirelessly to prove he could be both a capable businessman and a reformed husband. Time didn't heal all wounds, but it gave them room to breathe. Months had passed since the truth unraveled, since Penelope confronted Adrian, since Isabella confirmed the pregnancy, since everything that once seemed immovable in their marriage had cracked open. And yet there they were, sitting in a quiet therapy room, not as enemies, not even fully as partners, but as two people trying to figure out what was left and whether it could ever be whole again. Penelope had made one thing very clear early on. "I will not stay with you for appearances for Eliana or for the Beaumont name. If I stay, it will be because I believe something real still exists between us. Otherwise, I walk." Adrian had nodded at the time, a lump in his throat too large to speak around. And since then he had tried, truly tried to show her that he heard her. In those first few months, he rearranged his entire life. He stepped back from his most demanding business ventures, delegating major responsibilities to trusted associates. Late-night meetings became rare. Instead, his evenings were filled with lullabies, diaper changes, and pacing the nursery floor until Eliana fell asleep. He'd never imagined that the soft hum of a baby monitor or the sleepy weight of his daughter on his shoulder could bring him more peace than the buzz of Wall Street. But it did. In fact, it was the one thing that made him feel like he was finally doing something right. Penelope noticed, quietly. She didn't rush to congratulate him or offer praise, but she observed the consistency, the sincerity. She watched as he documented every message exchanged with Isabella, as he carefully transferred child support each month, without ever trying to bend the boundaries they had agreed upon. There was no romantic rekindling yet. Their conversations remained mostly practical about Eliana's feeding schedule, pediatric visits, and logistics. But occasionally the walls thinned, a shared laugh over Eliana's expression when trying lemon for the first time, a lingering glance when their hands brushed during the bedtime routine. Glimmers, not flames. In therapy, Dr. Goodwin guided them gently. Healing doesn't always mean forgetting she had told Penelope. It means choosing to grow through the pain instead of being trapped by it. One day, Dr. Goodwin posed a pivotal question. Penelope, if you were to grade Adrian not as a husband, past, but as a husband today, how would you rate him? Penelope exhaled slowly. He's trying. Harder than I ever expected. He's present, transparent. With Eliana, he's patient and attentive. I still hurt deeply. But I can't deny that he's working to become a better man. Adrian didn't speak, but his eyes glistened. Still, the shadow of Isabella's child remained. Every month, Adrian received updates about Luca photos, milestones, medical notes. He shared everything with Penelope down to the last word. And to her surprise, she didn't flinch every time. The sting was still there, but over time it dulled. When Luca's first birthday approached, Penelope surprised even herself. "You can send him a gift," she said quietly. "He's your son. Just keep it simple." Adrian had nodded almost in disbelief. "Thank you," he whispered. That gesture marked a turning point. It didn't erase the betrayal, but it acknowledged that they were moving through it, not around it. Outside the therapy room, life was cautiously blooming. Penelope began accepting curated art contracts again, her passion returning slowly with each exhibit she designed. Adrian, though still under Victor Beaumont's wary eye, was proving that he could rebuild not only his business, but his integrity. Their relationship was no longer polished perfection. It was real, sometimes tense, sometimes raw. But it was anchored now, not in illusion, but in intention. One crisp afternoon, as they sat on the balcony watching Eliana babble over a set of colorful blocks, Penelope looked over at Adrian. "I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive you," she said. "But I believe you mean what you're doing now. And maybe that's a start." Adrian reached for her hand, not to pull her closer, but simply to hold space beside her. "No more promises," he said softly. "Just proof. One day at a time. And for now, that was enough. Thank you for accompanying me on this roller coaster journey of deception, heartbreak, and the glimmer of redemption." The millionaire took the mistress to the doctor. Using the appointment scheduled for his pregnant wife reminds us that even in a world of wealth and privilege, human emotions, love, trust, betrayal remain intensely real. Adrian's double life threatened not only his marriage, but also his sense of self. Penelope grappled with whether love can truly overcome betrayal, and Isabella learned the hard way that secrecy comes at a heavy price. If this story moved you, taught you something, or simply entertained you, please don't forget to show your support. Like this video, share it with friends who love a dramatic real-life twist, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another gripping narrative. Thank you for watching, and remember, some choices redefine us forever.